Wow. I am just honestly, I'm amazed at what happened with that Fox interview that Harris did with Bret Baier. And of course, the left is having a meltdown because, oh, poor Harris had to answer some actual questions for the first time in her campaign. Like, really? And I saw on the New York Times, the headline was Harris came in for an interview. It turned out it was actually a debate. Like, yeah, because someone's actually asking her tough questions that she needs to actually, like, think in order to give an answer to instead of it just being, like, fluff like all the interviews that she's done with all the other ones like ABC and CBS and they're just pretty much just a a proxy of the Harris campaign and the Democratic Party. That's what they are. And you could say Fox is the opposite. They have Republican bias, which they obviously do. But I've always had respect for Bret Baier and the work that he's done with Fox News. And there's even been some times where he's had contentious interviews with Republicans, with senators, with members of the GOP. And while he probably does have a right wing bias compared to other journalists who are just extremely to the left, Bret Baier he doesn't appear to me to be as much of an ideologue as most interviewers do in in modern times. It's just like everyone's just so hyper partisan. You don't get any unbiased down the middle coverage anymore from anything you see. Like it's sad, but that's what politics has become, and that's what the media has become. Is that depending on which source that you watch stuff is you pretty much get different information, and everything's framed in a completely different way. You don't even agree on what the facts are. Never mind what the solutions to these problems are, or if anything is even a problem to begin with, like immigration. It's a perfect thing. Clearly, something that's been hurting the Harris campaign because of the immigration problem going on, and yeah, because Bret Baier actually asked her questions, and she obviously couldn't fucking solve it. Like she couldn't figure out a good answer to the questions that he was asking, especially with immigration, when who's talking about funding transgender surgery for illegal immigrants, and it's a pretty direct question. Yes or no? Are you going to do would you support taxpayer funded transgender surgery for undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them? And she wouldn't give an answer. She would not even answer. She wouldn't answer that question. That means the answer is yes, by the way, obviously. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff where she's either dodging the question, like especially when asked about, like you talking about, like all you do is talk about Donald Trump. Every time that you're not talking about actual solutions that you have for this country. You're talking all about Trump and how horrible he is. But it's to be said that there's a lot of people who are not happy. Say the vast majority of people are not happy with the direction things are right now. And you are part of that incumbent administration. Oh, even though you're just the vice president, even then, like that's the argument people have tried to make. Well, Harris is different. She's not Joe Biden. She's a different candidate. Okay. But when she's asked, would you do anything different than what Biden's done? She says, no, I can't think of anything. He was amazing. He was great. So it's just, if this person wins, it just shows how pathetic our country is and just how I'm trying to think of a nice word to use that won't get me in trouble. uh, how just how bad the electorate is. I know it's just yeah, a whole bunch of other words I was thinking of, but I had to kind of stop myself because I've said certain things in the past that has gotten me in a lot of trouble, not just with the viewers, but with YouTube itself. So, yeah. But I'm sure you could figure out what I would have said or what I would like to say. It's just like, she's not, this is the first tough interview she has ever had that I can remember during this entire campaign. I don't remember a single other time where she was actually asked, like, questions that that she'd have to give an answer to that are not comfortable questions to ask, that aren't ideal to be asked for her, but they're very important ones that the voters should know about, should know what your stance is. And she refused. She gave either non-answers. She appeared very combative. She didn't want to be there. It seemed like she was kind of forced there against her will, and apparently it turned out she showed up late to the interview. But yeah, it's crazy though that, like, you could say because she's kept herself hidden this whole time, so people didn't really have much of an idea of who she was, and now that she's finally getting out there and uh, kind of actually like telling people what her campaign's all about and what she actually stands for, and not even doing that, like she's actually finally putting herself out there 3 weeks before the election, less than 3 weeks now, and early voting has already started. But I'm sorry, like, if you voted for Harris and now you're seeing her and you're like, oh, what the hell did I do? Yeah, you shouldn't be able to vote. Like, I'm people like this are the problem. They just vote for who, like, and they don't really care. They don't even think. They don't use any thought whatsoever into choosing who they're voting for. Just, oh, someone that's not named Donald Trump, check. And that's all they care about. I hate Trump so much. I'm gonna vote for someone else, even though I don't know I don't even know anything about what they are and what they stand for. But they're not Trump. I'm unhappy about inflation, the state of the economy, but I hate Trump so much, even though the economy was so much better under Trump. Now, look, I understand why Trump is not very likable. He is far from an ideal candidate or a great person, if we're going to be frank and honest about that. But that if you compare the sample size of Trump's presidency, the 4 years that we had under Trump, and the almost 4 years that we've had under Biden, it is not even comparable as far as how things were. Like, which 4 years were better? And even the dark time of the Trump presidency, the COVID pandemic, and I've said this point multiple times, that was not his fault. Anybody can clearly see that it wasn't, because the whole reason why the economy came crashing down in 2020, in March of 2020, was because governors were forcing people to stay home and had lockdowns and everything. Trump did not support these lockdowns. He's actually said pretty quickly, we need to get back to work, and we can't have this economy just at a screeching halt. We can't have everything shut down because it's going to be a disaster. But the vast majority of people said that Trump was a monster and was a horrible person for saying that. But retrospectively, he was one of the few people that had the balls to say the truth back then. And if people listened to Trump more than Gavin Newsom, the economy would have been in a much better place and things would not have been nearly as catastrophic as it ended up being. And even on the point of COVID deaths, which is something that people talk about quite often and blame Trump for it. So Trump was president for 10 months, from March 2020 to January 2021. And so during that 10-month period, you had a lot of deaths from COVID, obviously. But if you compare that to the first 10 months of the Biden administration, there were actually far more deaths from COVID-19 than there were under Trump. But because Biden had a D next to his name, doesn't matter. Like, that's the problem that I have with these talking heads and all these people that claim to be so principled and have all these beliefs and values that they claim that is like a huge part of their decisions and their political stances and everything. But once someone with the D next to their name, once a Democrat does the exact same thing that they just criticized the GOP for doing, from the Republicans, for Donald Trump, whoever, all of a sudden, it no longer matters. Oh, the racist criminal justice system that disproportionately affects black people. Well, we'll just forget about Harris's entire term as DA, where her career pretty much thrived upon throwing those people in prison and ruining their lives. But Harris is a Democrat, so it's A-okay. It's just a clown show right now. That's what our politics is. It's nothing but a joke. There's no serious debate. It's all performative art. That's what politics is. It's theater. It's people bullshitting their way into gaining power. Like, they say all these things that they don't actually believe in. They don't actually give a fuck about you or anything. But people believe in them. People people really put so much faith into a politician. A politician. People center their whole lives around it. Like, oh, If only this person was in office instead of this other person, life would be so much better. Oh, yes, it would be. I don't know. I mean, Trump is not perfect, but I could just use I've experienced it. I experienced Trump. I've experienced Biden. Knowing that Harris will be a lot closer to Biden than Trump in terms of policy and everything, it's a no-brainer to vote for him, regardless of all the other ideological shit and everything else going on. That alone is like you got to vote for Trump. So that was an obvious decision on my part, and so I plan on election day to proudly cast my ballot for Donald J. Trump for the third time in my life. I've only ever voted for one person for president, and this will be, regardless of what happens, the last time that I'll ever be able to vote for Donald Trump again, unless it's Donald Trump Jr. Hopefully not. That actually would not be very good. But it's a very important election, and that's that's the cliche that's used every 4 years, the most important election of our lifetimes. This feels pretty significant, and I think it could really it will be an unmitigated disaster if Harris gets in, just because she doesn't seem to really know what the fuck she's doing, and like just on the world stage alone, that she's having such a hard time talking to Fox News. Well, hate to break it to you, but Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and all these other world leaders, the Ayatollah, Kim Jong-un, name any world leader that's like, they're not really, they're very tough to deal with, we'll just put it that way. And people, if you can't deal with Bret Baier, how are you going to deal with those people? The answer is you're not going to. And people can say whatever they want about Donald Trump, but his foreign policy was actually really good. And even though people made fun of him, they mocked him, they had that's the thing that people don't realize. Oh, he had so much criticism from all these foreign leaders, and these foreign people, these leaders in Europe and all these other places really don't want Trump to get in. That's a good thing. That is actually a very good thing. That's a good gauge as far as whether or not this person is actually putting America's interest first, which is the job of a president, versus just kowtowing to these other countries and just doing everything they want instead of what's best for our people. So, I really, really hope that Trump's going to win. I was planning on taking days off for election day, and maybe like a day or two after that. But I predicted Trump to win, but I'm just like really, really nervous that the opposite might happen, because Harris does have a good chance of winning. I still don't understand what people see. It's just because it's not Trump, like I said. That's really the only thing. There's nothing of substance or actual quality of Harris as a candidate or as a person. But they're voting for nothing, pretty much. They're voting for, it's an endorsement of the failed economic policies and just the overspending and all the horrible shit we've experienced since Biden took office. It's like, oh yeah, we want more of that. But it's like, okay, fine, you vote for that. And then if you're still struggling like you've been the past 4 years, gas prices are too high, the inflation, the grocery prices are way too high, everything's going up, and you cry and complain about it, yeah, you reap what you sow. Because you knew what was going to happen. You didn't want to think it, but you naively thought that somehow it was going to be different. But all the facts laid out before you clearly shows that you're just going to get another Biden administration, because literally she is part of the Biden administration. But you can't get through to people. You really can't. They're just so set in their ways. They have such an irrational hatred towards Donald Trump. And like I said, he is far from the best human being on the planet. That's probably an understatement, honestly. But shit, as far as governance and as far as policy is concerned, it's not even a contest. So, yeah, again, I'm really nervous about this, but just seeing Harris out there on Fox just clearly shows how she is the worst candidate that I have ever seen, major party candidate that I've seen in my entire lifetime. The first election I remember was 2004 with Bush and Kerry. Kerry held his own against Bush, and that was really back and forth election. Could have gone either way, similar to this one. But if Kerry won, it would have been like, okay, he was definitely more effective, and he was a much better speaker than Harris is right now. Absolutely. I mean, Biden was a pretty terrible candidate too because he wasn't even out there. He didn't do anything, and of course he blames it all on COVID, but they kept him hidden for a reason. So Biden was up there too. Maybe he was slightly worse than Harris because you could even see the signs of dementia 4 years ago. And I love how they're now all talking about, oh, Trump and his cognitive decline because he decided to go out and fucking dance on the stage, which if I can dance at his age, I think that I'll be really grateful for that. Oh, he's on cognitive decline. He doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. But you would have, if Biden was still the candidate, you would have voted for him without hesitation. What does that say? What does that say about you and what you like, your values and your beliefs? You're just all full of shit. I'm sick of all you people. I am sick of this election coverage. I'm sick of everything. Part of me is kind of like, we'll be relieved once the election's done and over with, but you know that it's just gonna, it goes on and on, like, you know, the Don't Stop Believing. It goes on and on and on. It will never stop. This nonstop fucking cycle. It's just, it's so frustrating even talking, because even if you are logical and what you're saying is just the truth, most people don't even want to hear it. Like, you're not going to be able to persuade someone that their candidate is shit, that their political party is shit, or that their policies are shit. It's like a lifelong fan of whatever football team you can think of, or whatever sports team. I was going to use a specific example, but it doesn't really matter. You can insert any sports team possible out there. And then when they're playing bad football, when they're doing horrible, when they're doing like just really bad things, screwing over their players, screwing over the fans, and doing all the shit, you're still going to be a lifelong fan of that team, no matter what. You are ride or die. The fact that we still have a lot of Cleveland Browns fans, that says a lot, because it's all you know, being a Browns fan. Even though they have a sexual predator as their quarterback, even though their head coach is just, well, honestly, the head coach isn't really as much of a problem as the owner, but we're not going to get into a whole football tangent here. My point is, though, that it's maybe just an innate part of human nature for people to be so set in their ways, and they can't even think of changing their worldview because it shatters their entire perception of reality, and it makes them like it's just they can't handle it. So it's very rare that you see people who are like, oh, I'm a lifelong Republican, but now I'm a Democrat, even though there's a few people that are doing that, like Liz Cheney, who's still not a Democrat but is supporting Democrats, and other people who Trump fired in his administration and had a falling out with, so they have political reasons to oppose him. And Mike Pence, obviously, who, you know, Mike Pence didn't endorse Harris, but yeah, I also think that was funny. I think that just says a lot. Thank you, Dick Cheney, for your service. After he endorsed Harris, Harris said that. Thank you, Dick Cheney, for all your service and what you've done for our country. Yeah, what service was that? Can you elaborate on that? Are you talking about his war crimes? Are you talking about all the shit that he's done, fucking destabilizing the Middle East, causing so much death, needless death, to American soldiers and civilians around the world? Is that the service you're talking about, Harris? So that's another great example. All of a sudden, Dick Cheney is a hero. Dick Cheney is a hero because he supports the candidate I like. That's all that matters to a lot of these. Fucking... I had to stop myself again. But that says a lot. I remember Dick Cheney, when he left office, had a below, what was it, like a 14% approval rating by the time he left in 2009? Something like that. It was something like so abysmally low that it's just like, it's comical. Like, you think like you wouldn't want to touch that person with a 10-foot pole. Never mind accept their endorsement and all that shit. Like, okay. So, yeah, those are just some of my scattered thoughts about the the election. It was supposed to be a focused topic and story specifically about Harris and the Fox News thing, but just it's all just horrible. the way people think, the things people do, the way people decide that they want to vote for X candidate versus the other candidate. It's yeah, uh, really sad current state of American politics right now.